Ethan Harper wiped the sweat from his brow. The stainless steel counters of Harper and Sons still warm from the lunch rush that had ended only minutes earlier. At 28, he was the youngest head chef in a three-generation New York restaurant that had fed politicians, celebrities, and locals since his grandfather opened the doors in 1972. The air smelled of rosemary, seared scallops, and the faint metallic tang of a knife he had just dropped when his father, Victor, had screamed those final words. Outside on Mulberry Street, the early autumn wind whipped fallen leaves against the windows. Ethan stared at the menu board where the new special still glowed in fresh chalk. Ryan's Embrace, seared duck breast with cherry port reduction, crispy shallots, and a whisper of lavender honey. He had created it in secret 3 weeks ago, inspired by the way Ryan's laugh tasted like late-night talks and stolen kisses in the walk-in cooler of a pop-up event they had both worked. Ryan Caldwell, 26, freelance food photographer with a smile that could melt butter and eyes the color of good whiskey. They had been together for 14 months, hidden from Ethan's conservative Italian-American family, who still believed the only acceptable love story ended in a church and a house full of grandchildren. The video had been impulsive. Ethan had filmed the plating on his phone during a slow Tuesday night, posted it to TikTok with the caption, "When your muse is the secret ingredient," and tagged a few food influencers. By midnight, it had 500,000 views. By morning, it was everywhere. Instagram Reels, Twitter threads, even a segment on a morning show. Ryan's Embrace was trending. Orders poured in. Then the comments started. "Who is Ryan? Is this chef single? This dish is gay-coded, and I'm here for it." Victor had stormed into the kitchen at 10 a.m., phone in hand, screen frozen on a viral clip. "What the hell is this, Ethan? You named a dish after some guy?" People are saying. His voice cracked. "Are you telling me my son is that?" The silence that followed was heavier than any cast-iron skillet. Victor's face twisted through disbelief, anger, then something colder. "You're dead to us. Pack your knives. The restaurant is closed to you. Forever." Ethan's mother, Maria, had stood in the doorway crying, but said nothing. His brother, Marco, looked away. The family that had taught him to fold tortellini at age 6, that had celebrated every Michelin mention, now saw him as a betrayal. He left with nothing but the clothes on his back and the memory of Ryan's last text. "Babe, your dish is blowing up. Call me when you can." That night, Ethan crashed on a friend's couch in Brooklyn, scrolling through the comments until his eyes burned. The dish was his confession, his love letter, and his ruin all at once. He had no job, no family, and a viral sensation that tasted suddenly bitter. But somewhere beneath the panic, a small spark flickered. Maybe this was the beginning of something he had never dared to cook for himself. The next morning, Ethan woke to 300 new direct messages and a voicemail from a producer at Food Network. "We want the story behind Ryan's Embrace." He deleted it. Ryan's Embrace was no longer just a dish. It had become a symbol. Gay foodies were calling it revolutionary. Conservative food blogs were calling it an abomination. Ethan's phone buzzed again. "Ryan. Hey, I saw the chaos. You okay?" Ryan's voice was gentle, the same tone he used when photographing golden hour shots of street tacos in Queens. They met at a tiny cafe in Williamsburg where the barista knew them as the cute couple who always split the avocado toast. Ethan told him everything. The slammed door, the disownment, the way his father had looked at him like a stranger. Ryan listened, then reached across the table and laced their fingers together right there in public. "Then we built something new, together." The next week was a blur of pop-up dinners. Ethan borrowed a friend's industrial kitchen in Bushwick and started cooking Ryan's Embrace for strangers who lined up at 6 p.m. sharp. The first night sold out in 40 minutes. The second night, a line stretched around the block. TikTokers filmed themselves crying over the first bite. It tastes like being seen for the first time. Ethan smiled for the cameras, but at night, he stared at the ceiling of Ryan's tiny apartment, wondering if the price of visibility was worth the empty chair at every family holiday he would now miss. His brother Marco texted once. "Dad says don't come home. Mom cries every night. Fix this." Ethan didn't know how. The dish kept growing. A famous chef in Los Angeles offered him a guest spot. A cookbook agent slid into his DMs. Ryan photographed every plate, every tearful customer, turning their secret love into public art. Yet Ethan felt the fracture widening. When Ryan suggested they go public on Instagram, "Let the world see us, Ethan. No more hiding." Ethan hesitated. "I just lost my entire family. I can't lose the last piece of me that still feels normal." Ryan's smile faltered for the first time. By the end of the month, the pop-ups had raised enough for Ethan to sign a lease on a narrow storefront in the Lower East Side. He named it Embrace Kitchen. No Harper and Sons attached. The opening menu featured only one signature dish. On the night of the soft launch, Ryan stood beside him in a crisp white shirt, camera around his neck, whispering, "You did this. We did this." Ethan kissed him in the walk-in cooler, just like old times, but the taste of fear lingered on his tongue. Outside, the city lights glittered, and somewhere across the bridge his father was probably locking the doors of the family restaurant, erasing Ethan's name from the history that had once been his entire world. The first real crisis hit in November when a major food magazine ran a cover story, "The Dish That Broke a Family." They had interviewed Victor without Ethan's knowledge. The article painted Ethan as a selfish son who had weaponized his sexuality for clicks. Comments flooded in, some supportive, many vicious. Ryan read them aloud one night in their apartment, voice tight. "They're saying you used me as a marketing stunt, that I'm just a prop." Ethan tried to explain that the dish had come from the purest place, but Ryan's eyes filled with doubt. "Then why won't you let me post us together? Why am I still your secret ingredient instead of your partner?" The argument ended with Ryan sleeping on the couch. Ethan lay awake replaying every moment he had chosen silence over truth. The next morning he found a note. "I need time to think if I'm helping you heal or just helping you hide." Ryan's camera bag was gone. The apartment felt enormous. Embrace Kitchen kept thriving anyway. Reservations were booked 3 months out. A celebrity couple posted a video of them sharing the dish on their anniversary, calling it the most romantic plate in New York. Ethan cooked through the pain, plating each Ryan's embrace with the same care he once reserved for family Sunday dinners. He started volunteering at a youth shelter that fed LGBTQ plus teens, teaching them knife skills and telling them it was okay to be who they were. One kid, 16-year-old Leo, reminded Ethan so much of himself at that age that he hired him part-time after school. Watching Leo's confidence grow was the first time Ethan felt something close to healing. Then the holidays arrived like a second Disowned. Thanksgiving at Harper & Sons had always been sacred. 20 tables pushed together, 3 generations arguing over stuffing recipes. This year, Ethan spent it alone in the kitchen prepping extra meals for the shelter. Ryan still hadn't called. On Christmas Eve, Ethan posted a simple story. A single plate of Ryan's embrace under soft lights with a caption, "Missing the original muse." The internet melted. Ryan saw it. At 2 a.m., he showed up at the apartment door, holding a bottle of the same port wine used in the reduction. "I was scared too," he admitted. "Scared that loving you meant watching you lose everything." They talked until dawn, then cooked the dish together at 4 a.m., feeding each other bites between kisses. The reconciliation tasted sweeter than any reduction Ethan had ever balanced. Yet the universe wasn't done testing them. 2 days after New Year's, Ethan received a letter from his family's lawyer. Harper & Sons was struggling, bad reviews, declining reservations, rumors that Victor's health was failing. The letter wasn't asking for help. It was a formal cease and desist, demanding he stop using any variation of the Harper family recipes. Ethan stared at the paper until the words blurred. The dish that had saved him was now being treated like stolen property. He had a choice: fight, or let the last thread connecting him to his bloodline snap forever. Ethan chose silence at first. He reworked the recipe slightly, added a new herb blend, changed the plating, so it could no longer be called a Harper dish. But the internet noticed. Food bloggers accused him of erasing his roots for clout. The pressure mounted. Ryan suggested they take a weekend away upstate, just the two of them in a cabin with no signal. They hiked through snow-dusted pines, cooked simple pasta over a fire, and for 48 hours Ethan remembered why he had fallen in love with Ryan in the first place. because Ryan saw the man, not the chef, not the scandal. Back in the city, Leo, the shelter kid, showed up at the restaurant with a black eye. His own father had reacted the same way Victor had. Ethan sat with him in the office, sharing the story of the slammed door, the viral video, the slow climb back. You don't have to forgive them, Ethan told Leo, but you do have to forgive yourself for wanting their love. That night, he added a new item to the menu, Leo's Courage. A simple grilled cheese elevated with truffle and aged balsamic, named after the boy who needed to hear he was enough. It sold out faster than Ryan's embrace ever had. Then came the phone call Ethan never expected. His mother, Maria, voice trembling. Your father had a heart attack last night. He's asking for you. Ethan froze. Ryan squeezed his hand. Go. I'll hold the restaurant down. The drive to the hospital in New Jersey felt longer than the entire last year. Victor lay pale in the ICU, monitors beeping. When Ethan walked in, his father's eyes widened, not with anger this time, but something closer to regret. I watched that video 100 times, Victor rasped. The way you plate that dish, it's better than anything I ever taught you. I was wrong, son, about a lot of things. The words were halting, decades of stubborn pride cracking under hospital lights. Ethan didn't cry until he was back in the hallway, Ryan waiting with coffee and open arms. The reconciliation was slow, messy, and incomplete. Victor couldn't suddenly march in a pride parade, but he asked Ethan to consult on the restaurant's new spring menu. Marco texted an apology. Maria cried happy tears over the phone. Yet Ethan made one condition. The name Harper & Sons would stay, but Embrace Kitchen would remain his own. 2 separate kitchens, 2 separate stories. Ryan moved in officially the same week, hanging his photography prints on the walls of their new shared apartment above the restaurant. For the first time, Ethan felt the pieces fitting, not perfectly but honestly. Spring brought new challenges. A national chain offered Ethan a consulting deal worth more money than he had ever seen, but it required relocating to Los Angeles and dropping the personal story angle. Ryan's photography career was finally taking off in New York. A gallery wanted to exhibit his series Plates of Us. They argued for the first time since the Christmas reconciliation, Ray's voice arguing that ended with both of them exhausted and scared. Ethan realized the dish that had started everything was still forcing choices. Love or legacy, New York or California, staying visible or stepping back. He turned the offer down. Instead, he and Ryan planned a collaboration dinner. Ryan would photograph every course live, and the proceeds would go to the shelter where Leo now worked full-time. The night sold out in 11 minutes. Victor and Maria surprised everyone by showing up, sitting quietly in the corner. When Ethan brought out the final plate of Ryan's Embrace, now plated with a tiny edible lavender heart, Victor stood and applauded. The room followed. Maria hugged Ryan like a son. The moment wasn't perfect television. It was better. It was real. Yet the true turning point came 2 months later when a journalist asked Ethan for a follow-up interview. Instead of the usual viral dish questions, she asked, "What would you tell the version of yourself who stood outside that slammed door?" Ethan answered without hesitation, "I would tell him the dish was never about revenge or fame. It was about courage, the same courage it takes to love openly, to cook honestly, and to build a table big enough for the family you choose." The quote went viral again, but this time it felt lighter. Leo graduated high school that June. Ethan and Ryan hosted a small party in the restaurant after hours. Victor sent a check for Leo's college fund with a note, "Proud of the man you're becoming, and the man who helped him." Ethan framed the note beside the original viral video, still playing on a loop in the kitchen. The circle was closing, not in the way he had imagined as a child, but in a way that felt true to the man he had become. Summer arrived with the kind of heat that made the city shimmer. Embrace Kitchen hosted its 1-year anniversary, transforming the narrow storefront into an open-air courtyard filled with string lights and long communal tables. Ryan's Embrace was no longer the only star. The menu now told an entire story. Dishes named after people who had shaped Ethan's journey. Maria's Sunday Gravy, Leo's Courage, even a subtle nod to Victor's original scallop recipe reimagined with pride. That night, Ethan stood at the pass, watching Ryan weave between tables taking candid photos. His father and mother sat at the head table beside Marco and his wife. Leo brought his new boyfriend. The shelter kids who had become regular staff laughed over plates they had helped prep. When the last course went out, Ethan stepped into the center of the room, holding one final plate. On it rested a single perfect Ryan's embrace, garnished with a tiny edible flag in the colors of the rainbow. "I used to think family was something you were born into," he said, voice steady. "Then I learned family is something you cook for every single day. This dish started as a secret and became my truth. Thank you for eating it with open hearts." The applause was warm, not viral. It was the sound of belonging. Later, after the last guest left and the lights dimmed, Ethan and Ryan stood on the rooftop overlooking the quiet street. Ryan rested his head on Ethan's shoulder. "You know what the best part is?" he whispered. "The dish doesn't need to go viral anymore. It just needs to feed the people we love." Ethan kissed him under the New York sky, tasting cherry port and second chances. Somewhere across the bridge, Harper and Sons was still open, carrying its own legacy. 2 kitchens, 2 stories, 1 heart. Ethan had lost a name and gained a life. And every plate he served from then on carried the same quiet message. Love is the only ingredient that never runs out. In this story of chef who lost everything the day he dared to name a dish after the man he loved, the deepest lesson is that authenticity isn't a betrayal. It's the only way to truly nourish yourself and others. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who stay at your table, even when the recipe changes. Ethan's journey reminds us that courage tastes better than regret, and the right kind of love doesn't ask you to erase your past. It simply helps you write a better future. Cook honestly, live openly, and never be afraid to let your heart be the secret ingredient.